I think there is a recognition here, which we haven't always had in the past, that to get institutions to do something, you first have to convince the members of the institutions. And if you look at the European institutions, Germany is certainly the most important member of most of them. And Germany has a position, a geographic position, a role, a strength, which is for the United States important in just about every issue we're talking about. So the effort of the report is not to say forget the institutions, it's rather to say let's figure out how best to influence the institutions, and having close cooperation with Germany is one of those ways. To me it's very interesting that the manner in which the first steps towards dealing with the economic crisis was taken was very similar to what Chancellor Merkel proposed with her Transatlantic Economic Committee. That is, that governments decided themselves what they needed to do. They formulated common goals. They came up with some common ideas on how to do it. The common ideas didn't come from an institution, but mostly in this case from the United Kingdom. And in the end we had a consensus, but it was a consensus, it was a sort of an open source consensus, to use modern terms, rather than a consensus based on a treaty and an organization. I personally think that's going to be very much the model for the future. Much more open sourcing rather than dealing with existing institutions.
What could the future of NATO look like from a U.S. perspective and from a German perspective, obviously in regard to Afghanistan as well?
Well, NATO has an important role and an important foundation which cannot be duplicated anywhere else. NATO is the only existing functioning multinational security agency on the planet. The UN, of course, has its peacekeeping, which one should be very supportive of. But for a group of countries to actually take a decision to move forward in what is in Afghanistan, what also was the same case in Bosnia, was not just a peacekeeping mission, but a military mission. NATO is the only group of countries who can do that.
On the panel you mentioned that America needs to push hard and that Europe needs to push hard, that there needs to be clear direction from the top, political direction. Can you elaborate on that a bit more?
Well, first place, we're in a crisis. We're in a major crisis. And so sitting down and having high-level study groups on this or that is not going to get us anywhere. What I hope that the new American administration will provide, and what I hope the Europeans, either individually or as groups, will also understand, is that we need to have some very clear thinking about what is the role of a Western community, what are our security interests, how are we going to help solve the economic crisis, etc. And the guidance has to be given from the top. In the discussion here, there was reference to Ambassador Burt, I think, recalled how well this had worked on the question of German reunification. German reunification was not settled by a committee, by a study group. It was dealt with by 2 or 3 international leaders, in particular Chancellor Kohl, President Bush, and President Gorbachev, who decided that they were going to do this. And from that political decision flowed then a great deal of bureaucratic work, a great deal of diplomatic work. But there are times in history when you need to have major top-level political decisions, and I think this is one of them.